This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerate. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words. God bless the United States.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
We have to keep our country gay.
Nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Monday, start of a new week, and of course we have all the usual hilarious / sad stories. Disaster stories, I should say. All right, so of course we're gonna have fun. First, we're gonna talk about Donald Trump and his utterly ridiculous idea. You're gonna love the puns too, the cow puns. It's going real cowboy attitude here going today. Then we're gonna talk about, of course, Don Jr. And his admission about if Don Jr. had, I don't know, a drug problem. What would happen? What would happen? Interesting stuff. Then, we're going to talk about, of course, one of the terrible negative effects, one of many, of the Dobbs decision that stripped reproductive rights from millions of people. And, of course, the Republicans going after gender transitions, not just for, of course, transgender youth, but for pretty much everybody. So, of course. But first, we're going to start out with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Basically, not knowing what socialism is, not a surprise, and trashing Medicare in the process. Yeah. So, anyway, like I said, got a fun show. If he had a drug problem, he'd post unhinged rants on social media. I mean, imagine how that would look. It'd be very strange and unprecedented for Donald Trump Jr. to post unhinged rants. Okay. Anyway, unhinged, possibly drug-fueled rants. But again, all speculation, of course. Now, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. With that, we're gonna dump. We got dumps, big, massive dumps. Perhaps we do, perhaps we don't.
Dumps.
I know words. I had the best words.
We're going to jump into the stories. How about that? We're just going to dump right into it. That's what we're doing. Big, massive dumps. Okay. Without further ado. I'm off to a great start, everybody. Great start. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks Medicare is socialism and that it's bad.
His big socialist programs were the Great Society. The Great Society were big government programs to address education, medical care, urban problems, rural poverty, transportation, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and welfare, the Office of Economic Opportunity, and big labor and labor unions. Now, LBJ had the Great Society, but Joe Biden had Build Back Better, and he still is working on it. The largest public investment in social infrastructure and environmental programs that is actually finishing what FDR started, that LBJ expanded on, and Joe Biden is attempting to complete. Socialism.
Socialism, because of course, right? Everything is socialism. Everything the government does, somehow, socialism.
In Venezuela.
Venezuela, social, all the same thing. Communism, same thing to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let me just note that I once again have to explain to a idiot what socialism is. I wish I didn't have to do so, but words apparently have no meaning. Socialism is not when the government does things. Socialism is when workers own the means of production. That's really all socialism is. She's thinking of social welfare programs. She's thinking of a welfare state. And by the way, you can be a capitalist country and have a welfare state. What do you think a lot of the social democratic countries in Europe do? They have capitalism with a very generous, far more generous than the United States, welfare state, where they guarantee health care to every person, where they guarantee an education to everyone, and not just a K through 12, but also a higher education for everybody. But that's not socialism. Socialism is workers owning the means of production. Workers owning the factories, owning the corporation, the companies. That's what that is. But for them, socialism is, everything is, government does everything. Right, okay, sure. All right, so now, look, Marjorie Greene calling these welfare state programs socialism, but of course, again, that's what they call anything the government does. That's it. Now, when she comes to other things, right? Like, I don't know, national debt. Well, we've got a national debt that's $32 trillion. So we've got record high homelessness. We've got inflation. We're losing, a lot of that comes down to corporate greed, corruption. Yes, I know. Our government is one big, flat, bloated machine. It's killing the American dream. Yeah, it's corruption. That's the result of that. That's the result. So look, the biggest driver of the national debt today is tax cuts for the rich and corporations. That's the driver of the national debt. That's why we do not have, that's why we have a lot of debt. We're not raising enough revenue to cover things because, again, corporations and the rich got massive tax cuts, not only from George W. Bush, but then Donald Trump. And look, not only that, but the money we take in, we also give a lot to corporations in the form of, corporate welfare. For example, the billions of dollars in subsidies to big oil that we give every single year. And let's not forget the ever-expanding Pentagon budget, the war budget that both Republicans and Democrats, they shovel money into. We have a near $1 trillion every year going towards the defense budget, which, by the way, there never seems to be any issue with any of that unless it's money going to Ukraine, which now Republicans are like, money going to Ukraine, boo, hate it. I mean, we love all the defense contractors getting all this money, but you know how Ukraine. Now, look, I'm not saying you can't legitimately ask, hey, look, why are we spending so much money arming other countries when we've got issues at home? And that's, by the way, that's a fair question. That's a legitimate question. That's a good conversation to have. Yes, absolutely. Now, is Greene having that conversation? Absolutely not. In fact, in another part of her speech, she says, the war in Ukraine does nothing to protect our borders, and that's with your hard-earned tax dollars. We're funding them with equipment. We're funding them with ammunition. Biden's war in Ukraine, a proxy war with Russia, has depleted our military. Our military is the weakest it has been in decades and decades. Wait a minute. How's it Biden's war in Ukraine when Russia was the one that invaded Ukraine and started the whole thing in the first place? Oh, look, I'm not saying the United States couldn't be pressing a little bit harder for Russia to get into peace talks. Sure. But here's the thing. How is this war, which Ukraine is fighting with Russia, how's it depleting our military? How is that depleting our military? How does that make any sense? Well, it doesn't make sense. It's insane. No, what this is doing, by the way, the war in Ukraine and all this military aid, it's really making defense contractors very, very wealthy. The same kinds of defense contractors that Marjorie Greene is financially invested in. And again, they're getting fat off our tax money. That is a real problem here. Okay, that is the real problem. And look, back in May, 60 Minutes did a really, really good interview with Shay Assad, who is a former executive vice president and top contract negotiator for defense contractor Raytheon, and a former top Pentagon contract negotiator under several presidential administrations. Here's what he said. He revealed massive amounts of price gouging that these contractors engage in when it comes to selling weapons to the United States government. Government, of course, buys these weapons, gives them to Ukraine. At least that's what they're doing now. Before, they would buy the weapons and just use them or let them sit and rot in the field, all this stuff. So now, during his time at the Pentagon, Assad reviewed prices for many products, sometimes ordering official reviews for the cost of some weapons. In nearly all the cases, Assad said, the government was paying far more than the product was actually worth in other markets or was worth in the past, with some things costing multiple times what they are actually worth, often costing the government hundreds of millions of dollars for one product. He said, quote, in the interview, the gouging that takes place is unconscionable. It's unconscionable. So that seems to be where a lot of our money is going to defense contractors who are price gouging us. Now, does Marjorie Taylor Greene talk about that? Is she angry at the defense contractors for gouging the taxpayer, the American public? No. No, of course not. No. What Marjorie Greene is over here complaining about is the non-existent socialism, while ignoring the Pentagon budget and the price gouging, because, look, at the end of the day, she ignores all the real problems, or I should say the real causes of these problems that she complains about, and then tries to do the opposite of what's actually good. For example, the stuff that she talked about with LBJ, all that stuff, good stuff. And in fact, progressives want to, I don't know, do more. Expand Medicare. I know, expand Social Security. Do things that help people, that give people health care, that help people with child care. All these nice things. Marjorie Taylor Greene does not want you to give, does not want you to have nice things. She does not want the government to give you nice things. She wants all of that stuff to go to her donors. That's it. That's it. Now, again, when it comes to Ukraine, it's obvious that Marjorie Taylor Greene is on the side of the Russians. And it's not just her, it's the vast majority of the right wing right now. And the reason is they want us to be more like Russia. I'm going to give you an example here. Russia just banned gender transition for everyone, transgender youth and transgender adults. Well, I'm sorry, they didn't just ban it. It actually passed through the Duma and then has to go through another house and then gets to Putin, and then he's very likely to sign it which again will ban transgender people effectively from existing in Russia. So that's what it's kind of what Republicans want to do here. Oh, not only that, but last year, Russia had banned any public expression or portrayal of just being LGBTQ+. So that's what the right wing in Russia, who has control, that's what they did. And that sounds a lot like what the right wing here in the United States also wants to do. Now, the MAGA chuds love that. They do. Oh, they love it. Great. Yeah, go and ban the transgender. Yeah. Even though it's not popular with the vast majority of the American people. Another thing, though, that's not going to be popular with the MAGA chuds is going after Medicare. Calling that socialism and basically saying, I want to get rid of it. Because that's what Joe Biden's trying to expand the socialism in our country. By the way, with something that you really, really like and benefit from, which is Medicare and Medicaid. Food stamps that are used on commissaries, by the way. So, look, I'm again, Medicare, very popular all across the political spectrum. The right has been, attacking that. And by the right, I mean big business, big corporations, very, very wealthy people have been attacking Medicare as socialism since its inception. And yet, Medicare is still more popular than it ever has been. It's got over 80% support. I mean, okay, just keep openly attacking Medicare. And by the way, add in Social Security too. Attack that, Marjorie Greene. Trust me, it'll do great. It'll do wonderfully in polls. But finally, let's get to the idea that President Biden is a socialist. That he's trying to continue LBJ socialism. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Y'all remember when Joe Biden broke the rail strike, right? I remember I was kind of pissed, as we all should be, because that was a huge Ronald Reagan-esque moment, because Reagan had, of course, broken the air unions, the air traffic controllers. And so now people who, again, work on the rails, who have been look, we've had train derailments, we had safety issues with these trains, we've had trains carrying toxic materials, plus you have workers that don't get any paid time off, they don't get any sick days, and very, very punishing schedules, because these companies want to downsize to as very few engineers as they could put on these cars while making these rail cars that much bigger. And when they tried to strike, the Biden administration broke it. Doesn't sound very socialist to me. Okay? I mean, I'm just saying. More akin to Ronald Reagan than LBJ or FDR. Okay? On those issues. But look, here's the thing. I wish President Biden were... I wish he was the lefty that right-wingers fearmonger about. The truth is, we don't really have socialism in this country. And it's because both Democrats and Republicans are united against it. We're a capitalist country, says, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And they're against it because the donors, the corporate donors, which do donate to both sides, by the way, they would lose out if workers ever gained that kind of power. Now look, Marjorie Greene is not only one of the dumbest Congress people in power, but she's also one of the most useful idiots in helping corporations to continue to gouge us and steal from us all. But, at least we get sound bites like this.
Jewish space lasers.
Worth it. Okay. Anyway. Fox News said we had to make social spending cuts because of Bernie as the shadow president and his socialism bankrupted us. Oh, Jesus Christ. Wow. Just wow. Ooh. All right. Moving on. back in 2019, then President Donald Trump had reacted to some reports that Texas ranchers were having a bit of a cow over Trump's plans to build his massive border wall. So apparently this has to do with grazing. And now that led the 45th president of the United States to have one of his most signature dumb ideas that we just found out about. Apparently, he thought that we should just build the wall, obviously, and then send the cows over that wall to graze via ladders. Let me give you the details here. Former Trump White House staffer Miles Taylor, in his new book, claims the former president had the idea to send cows over the wall using ladders so they can graze, while reacting to reports that ranchers had been bringing their cattle through openings in the wall so they could graze at the Rio Grande. Trump was furious over that because if we have gaps in the wall, that's going to let thousands of undocumented immigrants pour into this country. We can't have gaps in the wall. Okay, okay, so yeah, sure, no gaps in the wall. But then he also said, no doors. Oh, so no doors, no openings of any kind in this border wall. Now, the ranchers, of course, will want to bring their cattle over to what is still their land, okay, just with a wall on it, in order to graze. Trump said, no, I don't want that. No, I don't want that to happen. I mean, I don't want it to happen because there are doors. No, if you want to bring your cattle over, just hoist them onto a ladder and then push them over or something. I don't know. Now, look, Trump's then Department of Homeland Security Chief Kirstjen Nielsen insisted the president that this was not the case, that having a door in his big, beautiful wall would not let thousands of immigrants pour over the border, but it didn't matter. Trump demanded that the staff come up with alternative ways for the ranchers to be able to access the Rio Grande. Quote, give the ranchers ladders. They can use ladders to get to the other side, but not doors. You could even use small fire trucks. Call the local fire stations and use the ladders on their trucks to help them get over. Stupid. That, because calling the fire trucks is a great use of time and resources for our emergency departments. You freaking idiot. Wow. Stupid. Taylor recalls thinking that Trump's plan to send cows over the wall via ladders was incandescently stupid, but he nonetheless managed to avoid laughing in the former president's face because of obvious reasons. I mean, again, y'all know how much a single cow weighs, right? Anywhere from, starting around 1,000 pounds. And before you think, oh, come on, Jeff, he's obviously talking about the ranchers going over. First you have to have the cows that are on the other side of the wall now, but this is so the ranchers can go over to their cows, which are now on the Mexico side of the wall. Again, none of this makes sense, okay? This would essentially mean that the cows are cut off from the rancher's land, the rest of the rancher's land, and would only be on the Rio Grande. That's not a good thing. That's not smart. That's stupid. Stupid. And again, having the ranchers have to climb over a wall every time they want to check on their cattle that are stuck over on the other side. Again, ridiculous, not realistic, very stupid. Especially since in a lot of places, the wall would have been built would be on American soil. So it just wouldn't just be on the border. A lot of this, land that was going to be used would actually have been Americans' property. It would have cut Americans off from their own property, which would have to be seized in order to build a wall on through eminent domain. But I'm sure Texans love the idea of eminent domain, of the government coming in and forcibly seizing your land to build a wall on it. that now will separate you from your cattle because it will have no doors. No doors. Not at all. I mean, again, this is the brain genius that a big chunk of the Republican Party thinks definitely deserves a second term. Trump 2024.
Stupid.
Okay. Now look, let's be honest. The big reason that a lot of Trump voters want him is not just because of these pretty harebrained, ridiculous ideas. No, they like him for his more dangerous, hateful ideas. And let's be honest. Now, Taylor wrote that Trump was upset at the fact that the military that would be stationed on the border couldn't just mow down immigrants on sight. You know, basically murder them. You know, basically doing a crime against humanity. A literal crime against humanity. It wouldn't even be a war crime because we're not at war with immigrants. Despite the fact that, you know, right-wing media seems to portray it as an invasion, a war. Oh, we need to shoot them to defend the border. No, what you're doing is crimes against humanity. That's what you're doing. It's what you're advocating for. But they don't care. They don't care. I mean, these are the people that like Trump. And they hear this and they say, oh yeah, how come we don't get to murder these people? I mean, they're trying to come over the border. They want to murder people. Yeah, they do. They do want to murder people. They want to murder the people that are trying to come over the border. But that's what we're dealing with. Now, Taylor also writes this. When it comes to Trump, the truth is always vastly more idiotic than the fiction. Quote, he spent more time coming up with imbecilic ideas at the border than he did focusing on the job. Sometimes the ideas were stupid. Sometimes they were illegal. Oftentimes they were both. Now again, this is coming from someone who was actually in the administration. Look, people who are Republicans, okay? And that pretty much sums up what Trump would regularly ask people who worked for him to do. He would ask them to do either stupid or illegal things. And, you know, again, if he gets into, another term, gets elected, it certainly seems like he's going to win the primary, but it's still early. What's to prevent him from, again, asking for people, and this time picking people who might actually do those both stupid and illegal orders? Moving on. During a speech at the recent TP Action Conference, that's Turning Point USA, not toilet paper, Donald Trump Jr. claimed that his father, former President Donald Trump, would have thrown him into not just prison, but into Guantanamo Bay if he had a drug problem and a laptop like Hunter Biden. Take a look.
Do you know what my father would have done to me if it was my laptop? Yeah, my dad would have sent me to Gitmo. You're right.
That's right, Gitmo. I mean, yeah, my dad totally would have thrown me into a torture camp for terrorists if I had a drug problem and had that laptop. You know what I'm saying? No, what? Wait, what the? You know that's horrible, right? I mean, it's awful. Nobody deserves to be in Guantanamo. And by the way, there are people in Guantanamo Bay who actually weren't guilty of any crimes. Weren't actually terrorists. They were just rounded up and then they were kept there anyway. But anyway, look, And do you know what happened to the people there? Again, they were beaten, stripped naked, degraded, and in some cases even given something called rectal feedings. So that's the kind of stuff that happens in Guantanamo Bay. And your dad, if you had filmed yourself doing drugs and had it on a laptop or whatever, your dad would have thrown you in there? What? I mean, again, he retweeted a clip of this and said, true story, true story. Look, not even getting to some of the rumors around Don Jr.'s alleged love of white powdery substances, that says a lot about your dad. I mean, you know, to willing to throw someone in such a horrible place for that. I mean, you know, I mean, that's, maybe he's just an awful parent. I'm just saying. And it also sounds like not a lot of love in that family. Not a lot of love at all. In fact, that's not tough love. No, that's just, I don't know what that is. That's torture. It's torture. Look, by the way, you want to get your help, you want to get your kid help to get them free of these substances. You don't get that through torture. That's not how that works. Now, look, that said, to be fair, I don't think Trump would actually do anything like that. No, if they got caught with drugs, guaranteed there would be the biggest, you know, cover-up job imaginable. You think a Trump would get in trouble? No, of course not. No. You know why? Because it would probably make him look bad. And again, Trump is all about appearances. You know, it would just be like, I don't know, hide, cover up. And that's about it. But that said, did Don Jr. actually think that this was some sort of own? Look, you heard the crowd that he was talking to. Obviously, the one person, and it wasn't part of the video, but it's like, chop your head off, yeah. Oh, okay, so we're going with ISIS then, because that's what they did. That's what ISIS did to people. Yeah. So, oh, great. Okay, sure. Talking about Gitmo, talking about cutting people's heads off, and talking about, you know, throwing them into basically a torture prison camp. Wonderful. But I think the vast majority of people, look, I can only speak from my personal experience. I may not be the biggest Joe Biden fan, okay? I don't think he's progressive enough, but we've already went through all those issues, right? Just go back to some of my videos in the primary where I was super tough on him, okay? But in the case of Hunter Biden and how he, you know, treats his son, it kind of humanizes him a bit. And you think, actually, he seems to be trying to be a good supportive dad and help their kid. Even though, of course, I'm pretty sure that, you know, Joe Biden ain't happy with the stuff that Hunter Biden has done or is alleged to have done as well, you know. And of course, that's got to be a gigantic headache. But again, you look through some of the messages that they had sent each other, nothing but love and positivity from Joe Biden to his son. And it's actually kind of what you're supposed to do as a parent, to try to help them, you know, when they're going through a tough time. But Don Jr. wouldn't know that. I don't think he would ever understand that, because he knows that his dad would probably try to throw him under the bus, as long as it, you know, if it meant that he could save his own skin and reputation. Okay. Stop trying to make me like Joe Biden right wing. I know, right? They make it very hard for people to criticize him from the left. Okay. Tyler Heckner says, my dad hates me. Haha, isn't that funny? Okay. Anyway. Listen to the voicemail from Joe to Hunter. Nothing but a concerned father, which is what you're supposed to be. Which is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a good dad and help your kids. You know? Okay, but anyway, why don't we move on to the next story? All right, so this is a disaster story, of course. Get into it. A disastrous new report shows yet another negative consequence of stripping women, non-binary, and trans men of their reproductive rights. Since Dobbs v. Jackson had overturned Roe v. Wade last year, a lot of red states have passed some pretty draconian laws limiting abortion rights. Now, that, of course, has had a chilling effect on doctors. That has led to a lot of confusion about treating things like, for example, ectopic pregnancies, whether or not they can actually intervene to save the mother's life in certain circumstances, because, it might be viewed as an abortion, which would then allow the doctor to be punished through the law. So there's a lot of ambiguity on those issues. The laws in place in these states have not exactly helped. In fact, these laws have hurt. Even the clarifications have not helped. And so there's a lot of negative impacts from this ruling and these laws passed by the states. Pregnant people have nearly died as a result of this, and millions continue to be at risk. Now, all of that, of course, is to basically say, we told you so. We told you that this was going to happen. There's going to be a lot of negative impacts from the Dobbs decision, from overturning, reproductive rights in this country. There's another one that not a lot of people were expecting. And actually, this has to do with an increase in something called reproductive coercion. So I'm going to explain what that is. Basically, reproductive coercion is described as a form of domestic violence in which an abuser attempts to control their partner's body and reproductive agency, according to PBS NewsHour. Reproductive coercion involves things like hiding a partner's birth control or sabotaging their contraception. So I guess one example would be poking holes in condoms, or stealthing, where you basically initiate sexual activity with a condom and then mid-sexual activity, pull it, take it out, or take it off, I should say, and put it somewhere, or hide someone's birth control pills, or replace birth control pills with placebo pills, all these things. Okay, so that would be reproductive coercion. That is, of course, a big problem in any relationship. So now, add that into places where they have passed these massive draconian abortion bans. You can see how these two things together are even more devastating. An abuser can essentially control your body and force you into a pregnancy that you did not consent to, but will be, you will be forced to carry to term in these states. So that's horrifying. And again, all of this adds together to make it even more dangerous for women, non-binary folks, and trans men who still, have a uterus. Okay, so now, since the Supreme Court decision, instances of reproductive coercion have increased. According to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, they have seen a 100% increase in calls over this issue in reproductive coercion. Wow. So that is just, again, horrible. Hey, right-wingers, pro-life people, is this one thing that you wanted? Is this what you wanted for people who, again, didn't want to get pregnant, having abusive partners that have decided, we're just going to, pull a fast one on you and get rid of your contraception. And, I can control my partner's body that way. I don't know, maybe it is what they wanted. Maybe. Again, it means these men, and let's be clear, it's mostly men. I'm sure there are a couple of instances where, a female partner might want a child, whereas a male partner might not, or might not be ready for it. And that could happen. But I'm going to guess that it's mostly men who want to control a female partner who might not be ready for children. So I'm going to, again, assume that these men will take this opportunity to control their partners like the good old days where women had little control over their reproductive rights. This is back in, for example, back in the days where they didn't even have birth control. And now, of course, no access to abortion services, but still have birth control. So I guess they're just going to go and sabotage it themselves to ensure that these women folks stay in their place, right? Now, alongside the increase in these reports, PBS also noted that the hotline is now receiving upwards of 3,000 calls per day, the highest volume they've seen since its founding in 1996. So, I mean, there's been just a gigantic increase in abuse, sexual violence, domestic violence. And again, it's, you know, related to women losing reproductive freedom, pregnant people losing their reproductive freedom. In 2022 alone, only the last 6 months of which were impacted by the Dobbs decision, the hotline actually received 27,350 reports of sexual abuse, which includes refusal to use contraception, which is an increase from 2021 when the hotline received 21,093 reports of sexual abuse. So an increase by over 6,000 instances, and that's just over 6 months. Jesus. So again, men, right-wing men, maybe, you know, people who want the trad wives or want some sort of control, saw Dobbs as an opportunity. Hey, look, we're going to abuse women even further. You're going to be forced to stay with me now because I'm making you have my baby. You can't go get an abortion now. Ha ha. Again, absolutely horrific. Definitely anti-choice and anti-freedom. This is another example of the far right trying to turn this country into what is essentially Handmaid's Tale. And they've got the Supreme Court to thank for this. Because of course. Okay. All right, moving on. In what is another we told you so moment, the Republican Party, who claimed to at first respect the freedom of transgender folks, adults, to transition, are now proposing a limit to gender transition for adults. Now, look, it starts slow, but it ramps up pretty quickly. Former President Donald Trump last month had proposed banning all taxpayer funding for sex or gender transitions at any age. So it went from, you know, banning transition, which, by the way, is not, you know, medical transition in the fact in the form of surgeries, which do not happen for minors. Surgeries are not generally performed on minors when it comes to transition. It's mainly when it comes to medical, hormones, puberty blockers, and then it's mostly social transition, especially for, you know, prepubertal children. You know, they go through the social transition, changing their name, pronouns, dressing how they want, etc. It started there. But of course, it went to, oh, now we're just going to ban it for adults. Oh, great. So now, at the same event last month, at last month's Faith and Freedom Conference, he'd also pledged, this is Trump, to reinstate a ban on transgender men and women serving in the military, because of course. Now, Trump's currently leading in the polls, and so now he's doubling down on the anti-trans stuff, which I'm sure is going to do him very well in the polls. Well, it'll do him very well in the Republican primary, but probably not in the general election, as we have seen a huge blowout when you try to pass all these anti-trans bills. Okay, but again, it's not just Trump that is proposing these bans. In fact, you have pretty much all the Republicans running in the field today coming out in favor of banning transgender or banning transitions, right? So now, in a statement to McClatchy, D.C., the campaigns of many of the primary's leading contenders, including former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, said they support limits on transition. Now, specifically right now, they're supporting bans in the use of federal taxpayer money for gender transition surgeries for all ages. Now, again, I just told you that, teenagers don't generally get gender transition surgeries. It's incredibly rare if it happens, but generally is advised against. But they say that, they use that language anyways, so they can say, oh, look, we're protecting the children, we're protecting the children. When in reality, no, they're just using children as a shield to then go after everyone. And that's what they're doing, everyone. So now, Hutchinson said taxpayer money should not be used for transgender surgery. So what does that mean? It means using things like Medicaid, Medicare, or even if you're in the military, using government funded health care. It might even extend to subsidies for people who get subsidies for the ACA. I could see that happening because, that's government money. It's government subsidies. Oh, you can't get government subsidies for health insurance and then, actually use that for gender affirming care. Oh, no, you can't do that. So again, this is an attack on transgender rights and autonomy. But here's more. Hutchinson said, it is an individual's choice to undertake transgender surgery, and it is objectionable to many taxpayers. Taxpayers should not foot the bill. But, there's a lot of things the government does, sends money to that I find it objectionable. I find it objectionable to, give money to oil companies in the form of subsidies, billions of dollars a year. I find that very objectionable. I find it objectionable to, continue to have to give more money to the Pentagon, having our, tax money go to buying bombs and tanks that are used overseas. I gotta have an issue with that. I find that objectionable. Do Republicans find that objectionable? Asa Hutchinson, is that objectionable to you? No. But hey, look, here's the deal, right? So if I get to say that I find that stuff objectionable, giving corporate subsidies to corporations, so we don't do it anymore because I think it's objectionable. So let's not do it anymore. Okay, maybe I'll take that deal. If you can say that government money can't go towards trans surgeries, how about that for children? I'll take that deal. Number one, because it's not actually happening. No trans children are actually getting surgeries with government money. But hey, we'd win out on that. I'd take that deal. Okay. Now, anyway, there's more. It actually gets worse. Now, Tricia McLaughlin, a spokeswoman for Ramaswamy's campaign, told McClatchy, D.C., quote, "It's wrong to treat anorexia with a liposuction, just as it's inhumane to treat a person who suffers from gender dysphoria with genital mutilation. These are mental health illnesses that should be treated as such." Okay, so if we're talking about how Republicans treat mental illness, I'm assuming then you're just going to do nothing to help people access mental health, right? I mean, in fact, Republicans have actually been against people getting mental health treatment. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Look, I only wish Republicans would actually leave trans people alone and allow them to, get the health care and the stuff that they need. But unfortunately, Republicans are continuing to pass bills, draconian laws, against transgender people overall. And again, here's the thing, right? The treatment for gender dysphoria is social and medical transition. That's according to all the major medical associations. They might know a little bit more than, Nikki Haley's and Ramaswamy's campaign spokesperson. I'm just saying. Literally taking away the treatment for dysphoria, which helps people live better lives, trans people, okay? Look, Washington Post KFF study, this Kaiser Family Foundation, found recently that 78% of respondents said living as a different gender from birth has increased their satisfaction of life. This is a survey of 500 transgender people. Remember, there's only 1.6 million trans people in the United States, in the entire country. 500 of them, there was a survey, and the vast majority said, yeah, transitioning socially and medically has been good for my life. Now you might think, wow, 78%. Well, there's more. More than 4 out of 10 adults said that they're a lot more satisfied. In fact, T.C. Caldwell of Alabama told the Washington Post, quote, living doesn't hurt anymore. It feels good to just breathe and to be myself. But again, 78%, only 78%. Hold on. Misleading statistic. Let me show you. Let me explain why. So this isn't talking about whether they regret their transition. It's whether or not they're satisfied after transitioning. So it turns out only 78% have higher life satisfaction after transitioning. And that's because of the discrimination. So it could be a lot higher than 78%, which is already a vast majority of people saying, yes, I love that I have transitioned. I'm much happier now than I used to be. Now that I am living my truth and living my life. But again, that's a low number compared to what it could be because of the issue of discrimination. In fact, Tim McCoy, a Syracuse resident, who was in the survey, said, you always have that fear of what's going to happen when you tell someone you're transgender, especially these days. That definitely affects one's quality of life. It's a constant stress. Trans adults reported day-to-day harassment, including at work or with a healthcare provider. About 25% of trans adults said they faced physical assault due to their gender identity. That's a quarter of them. Gender expression or sexual orientation. An estimated 6 out of 10 have faced verbal harassment for being transgender. So yeah, that's going to affect your quality of life. But when it comes to actually regretting transition, well, about 1% actually regret transitioning. Those are the desisters, so the detransitioner people. Okay, so understand how much of a minority the detransitioners are, and yet what they get massive amounts of play in the media. Everybody's talking about the right wing, talking about transition and detransition. They're obsessed with it, but in reality, tiny amount of people. And look, adding, by the way, to what impacts trans people's, quality of life is the Republican bills that are targeting them. Courts across the country are now debating the validity of laws restricting access to puberty blockers and hormone therapy. Arriving at different conclusions in places like Florida and Tennessee, politicians in other states like Kansas are engaged in an ongoing fight over whether driver's licenses can indicate someone has changed gender since birth. Meanwhile, Republicans in the House voted this week to block the military's health plan from covering gender transition surgeries. The bill is not expected to be approved by the Senate. Remember, that's also going after adults. But this entire thing started as a claim that we're just protecting the children. Now, we know that claim is bullshit. It's always been bullshit. It's been bullshit the whole time. Again, when you actually talk to trans youth, that saves their lives. Gender transition saves lives. It reduces suicidal ideation among trans youth. But again, that's why it's been bullshit. But now we know the right wing is targeting adults. Now, many conservative activists say the transgender movement represents not just an irreversible danger to children, but a broader threat to society itself, blurring the lines between men and women in a way they find both wrong and repugnant. Mary Hassan, a senior fellow at the Conservative Ethics and Policy Center, said, "What I see with politicians is some of them are awakening to this issue. They're taking a look at it, and maybe the first thing they're willing to say is, I'm against allowing children to transition because of the way they feel. But I think they're going to be pushed to consider the question more deeply because of what we're seeing across society has far deeper ramifications." So again, right now, Republicans she's saying, well, we're more open to saying, oh, of course, children, yes, we use the children, right? But at the end of the day, we just don't like transitioning at all. We just don't think that that's correct at all. We don't think it's right at all. And we definitely want to put a stop to it. That's what they're saying. That's what they're doing. That's what the eventual plan is to shut down old trans people. I mean, one example is, and it really kind of shows the way their rhetoric continues to devolve towards trans people. Back in May, Nikki Haley went after Dylan Mulvaney, the woman who received a one can with her face on it, and then the right wing just went completely nuts over. He said this: "Make no mistake, that is a guy dressed up as a girl making fun of women. Women don't act like that." So this is their attitudes towards transgender people, towards adults. They're making fun of us. No, they're not. Haley, in an interview with the Dispatch, did say that she supported letting transgender people in the armed services serve openly. Oh, and that they should have every freedom and every equality as anybody else. But other Republicans, again, are going after adult transition, trying to shut down access to gender-affirming care for transgender adults. Other candidates, again, while they're mainly focused on trans kids right now, they have let it slip that they're going after adults. Michael Knowles basically admitted it. Okay? Michael Knowles said he wants to erase transgenderism from the country, which is not a thing. Transgenderism. But basically, just replace that word with trans people, and that's exactly what he wants to do. He wants people who are transgender, who identify, to be erased. That is the end goal here. At the end of the day, they do not respect trans people's freedoms. They want them gone, eradicated, eliminated. That has always been the end goal. And they will continue to, as far as they can stretch it, use children as their shield and their sword to go after the entire trans community. And when they're done with them, they'll go after the rest of the LGBTQ community. Because that's who they are. Okay. But condoms are gay, right? I think that was the dude that told us that. Was it him? Yeah, it was Michael Knowles. He also thinks that condoms are gay. Deeply unserious people. Unfortunately, people are taking them seriously. Okay. Anyway. That's all I got for stories today. So I'm going to go and I'm going to read some super chats. Member comments here. Progressive Boomer, thank you for being a member. Appreciate that. Mithril, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Gabby Mathis, thank you for the very kind 5 gifted memberships. And points out that in Arizona, 118 degrees Fahrenheit on Saturday. Right now, 112. We don't fight climate change. I'm worried about future generations. Sorry, young guys. We are solar recycle and do our best to preserve. It can't just be up to individual people, though. I mean, individuals, we're doing the best that we can. But when it comes down to it, you have the U.S. military, which is the largest polluter, one of the largest polluters, at least in the country, probably the world, and then all these corporations that pollute as well. It can't just be down to the individual. You have to have governments across the world that take action. And unfortunately, with capitalism as it is, I don't see, you know, I don't see anyone doing anything. I don't see it happening. And we are, look, we are the proverbial frog in the boiling pot. It just keeps getting warmer. And of course, we're warning everyone else. And they're like, oh, no. And they're not going to be, you know, they're not going to notice anything or do anything until they're cooked from the inside, along with the rest of us. Okay. Gabby also says, I just worry about the unhoused. Yeah. Well, we all absolutely should be. You know, poor people, just like, you know, poor countries, poor people will always, are always slated to bear the brunt, the worst of climate change. And I'm afraid that it won't get, you know, until it starts affecting rich people. And by then it'll be far too late. They won't do anything until it affects them. Again, far too late as it is. Okay. But we won't. What does that say about us? That we as a society, well, okay, maybe that's not fair. Not we as a society, but the people that are in charge. Stupid. And greedy. All right. Thank you, Twitch community, by the way, for tuning in. Everybody, Facebook as well. All right, everybody. That's all I got for y'all. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. We'll be back tomorrow with another great show. So that's it. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation.
Jewish space lasers.
Just forget about the evidence.
Whoopsie.
Obama.
Clean coal, meaning they're taking out coal, they're going to clean it. Whoopsie.
Get in a long tube with a bunch of bees.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
Florida's ground zero for the nursing home. I mean, we're God's waiting room.
Stupid.